All right. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us. Today we have Kyrin Bhula with us, who is a caregiver, and feel free to introduce yourself.
Um, yeah, so I'm Karen and I live in New Zealand. And I look after my mum who has Alzheimer's. She's been diagnosed since 2009. And I have been caring for her full time since my dad passed away in 2013.
Okay. So currently, are you the sole caregiver then?
Yeah, and
Okay.
I'm our only child, so
Okay.
it's just me and her.
Okay. And I take it, are you living with your mother right now?
Yeah, she's right here.
Oh wow. Hello.
Hi.
Hello. Nice to meet you. I'm Rashawn.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you. So I guess just on a high level, what has been your favorite experience so far as a caregiver? If there's anything that stood out as a highlight, has there been anything?
I guess for me, it's been like the whole experience actually, because I was living this pretty mundane life. I expect by now, if I was still in that life, I would like maybe be the manager of where I was working, but it was kind of a pretty menial existence, like just day to day. And I think by being a caregiver, I've been given so many opportunities. Like I retrained and I'm starting to do my postgrad studies. Um, and I like live this very nice, comfortable life that I think if I wasn't being a caregiver, I would just be working like a 50-hour work week and, doing kind of just this normal day to day thing, which I don't do anymore.
Oh, that's really great to hear. Wow. No,
Yeah.
thank you for sharing that, and that the whole experience has been something of a benefit is really refreshing. But I definitely assume that there are some challenges, for sure. So feel
Yeah.
free to go into that.
Yeah. And then I think equally it's
Mhm.
just as challenging being, you know, my mum, who I knew of her as a child, and sorry, and as a teen, and then as an early adult, no longer is who she is now. And the role reversal of like parenting my parent, and seeing her decline, and knowing that this only goes one way. There's no kind of she gets better or things get better. It's just this is us until she goes. And that's really, every time you do something, like every time I shower her or feed her or um, get her up in the morning, kind of that is a thought that's really close to my mind, is like, could this be the last time I do this? Or, this is us. This is what my life looks like now for however many more moons she has to go. Yeah.
Okay. No, thank you for sharing. And I think that's something that we do sort of touch upon in some of the material that we've looked at on the research side is that for caregivers, they're facing this dual role strain of being a family member as well as a care provider and sort of
Hmm.
wrestling with both sides of that equation and the stress that that provides in itself. I think that's
Yeah.
what you're describing.
Yeah. And I like maybe a few years into caring for her, I had to stop calling her mum and start calling her Martha, just to kind of separate out those roles
Mhm.
of like, it's really hard to care in this capacity for your mum, for the woman who grew you and birthed you and developed you. And in order to continue caring for her, I have to separate out, um, you know, the emotional side from the practical side.
Mhm. Okay. And then in terms of, I would say, tools or things that maybe support you in your caregiving arsenal, let's say, are there resources that you typically resort to or use frequently? Are there things that you're looking to have to support you?
Um, I think over the years it's kind of varied in terms of like therapy and friends. But recently I have, probably. needed a more needed a tech space, which is really interesting that we're having this conversation, because what I found with like the coronavirus and the Black Lives Matter movement, which is amazing, and amazing that social media is being flooded with so much of that content, but like tech spaces no longer became a place where I could escape to, because it was sort of like they were always so confronting. And it's like, I don't know, if you want somewhere to kind of just go and unwind or check in with yourself, I think social media has really become that space where you can be really mindless, but there's like that element of being confronted all the time by a lot of information, which is like, I don't need that. I don't need that on a day-to-day basis. I have to want to actively connect to that. So I think I'm looking for, something more calming in my life, but that I can still utilize my phone, because that's a real escapism as well. Like I've always got my phone on me.
Hmm. Hmm. No, absolutely. It's interesting that you brought that up for sure, because I was going to ask sort of the toll of caretaking with everything that's happening right now. For example, as you mentioned, the progress that's being made on the Black Lives Matter movement is fantastic. But I also agree that it's definitely a lot of a presence. So I guess if you're looking for social media for more of a calming presence, it may be a little tough. But then the other side of things is with the pandemic. And everything that's been happening, there's less of an opportunity for individuals to have separation outside of their home, for
Mhm.
example, or to explore nature, or to do things outside? Were those parts of your everyday routine in the past?
Yeah, and definitely, I think especially because in New Zealand we went into full lockdown. So for 5 weeks, you were only allowed to go to the supermarket. Um, and like for myself, I didn't go to the supermarket. I just got everything delivered. And it really highlighted how much just like really simple interactions between people that I don't even know. So like going to get a coffee in the morning, or just like walking down to check my mail and chatting to the neighbors. How much impact that has on kind of alleviating some of the stress. Um, and so when all of that was gone during our lockdown, it was rough, because it's like I don't get that social interaction. I would go days without talking to anyone because Martha is pretty non-verbal, so it was sort of like, um, yeah, I would go 3 or 4 days without saying a word, and it's just like, oh, that's really intense to have to be occupied by your own thoughts. So I think just being really social helps me get through as well.
Well, I think you have a fantastic Instagram account and following. And for everybody who's listening, it's my period mom period Martha. So please check it out. But have you had the opportunity to connect with folks, or perhaps have the content that you're pushing out there resonating with individuals, and perhaps build some social support through there? Or are there maybe caregiver groups where there's that opportunity to be able to converse?
Yeah, I found Instagram and Facebook kind of. I mean, Facebook's a really interesting platform anyway, but Instagram, I found a real community of caregivers and connect to people kind of all over the world. Um, and I feel like one of the really big things with caregivers, because I'm relatively young, like I'm 34 now, but when I started being a caregiver, I was 28. And like support groups, in terms of physical support groups, they really cater to older generations, or spouses. And I was going to a lot of support groups that kind of everybody was over 60,
Mhm.
um, and predominantly predominantly everybody was white. And so I think social media in particular has given me the chance to connect to people who are younger, who are also going through the same things, like what do I do with my career after this? um, how do I connect in a different way? Like I don't have children, I don't have these fallback things that maybe spouses or older children are dealing with. So I think technology has definitely given me like a community that I never would have otherwise, which is so amazing. I know so many amazing caregivers on Instagram now, and
Wow.
it's really awesome to like connect in real life. And you're just like, oh my gosh, like I've followed you for so long. So yeah, I really like that.
Yeah, that's awesome to hear, especially I would say the diversity side of the caregivers and being able to connect with folks on Instagram, like what we've seen just in terms of tech trends. It's sort of access to technology for sure. Is
Mhm.
definitely not favored minority populations, and then sort of representation within companies similarly. So when you're designing a product or designing a company, if it's very homogenous in its outlook, then you're not going to be able to serve the entire population. So it's really
Mhm.
interesting that you brought that up. Thank you for that. And so that's definitely Instagram we will continue to explore and hopefully be able to connect with folks and provide as diverse of an experience as possible. Okay. In terms of things that Martha loves to enjoy, or perhaps what are the things that would you say are some of the favorite activities that you guys are able to do, maybe in the past, perhaps not as much now, or things in the future?
Mhm. I think Martha's really social. Like she loves people, and she loves people more than I love people. Like she just really enjoys being around people, and she has a really calming demeanor. So even though she's non-verbal, she still communicates like a lot of love and a lot of kindness. And I think like one of my favorite things is just being out with her, like at a cafe or somewhere, and the way she connects with strangers is like a really interesting thing to be witness to, because she'll smile at them or wave at them, and I think that really changes people when they're like, oh, someone just smiled at me or waved at me. And then she loves music. Like she'll often have headphones on listening to her favorite songs. um, and I think that's really powerful because music has that different frequency. So even though she's nonverbal, if I put her headphones on, she could sing you a full song, because
Oh,
she still has that sort of
mhm.
embedded in her memory. And then yeah, that's kind of what she likes to do. And then we just hang out and watch movies and Fresh Prince of Bel-Air and stuff like that.
That's awesome. That personal connection, I think, is fantastic, and it's not something that is ever lost on anyone. It's just having that impact of a smile is something that can go such a long way. So that's amazing to hear. In terms of, I would say, ability to interact with technology, is that something that's part of the everyday for either you in terms of caregiver tools, or Martha in terms of support for the day, or any fun applications or opportunities with tech?
I probably for Martha it's just using like an iPod,
Mm.
and also I think like with the development of streaming services, that's been really important because it's like I can play her favorite show, which is like Fresh Prince of Bel-Air or The Big Bang Theory, because it's very easy comedy, and I think she can stay engaged with that, and I think that's really great. And then for me, I mean, I use my phone a lot to escape. And recently, Martha has started this weird breathing thing that's really loud. So I think I use my phone a lot to listen to like quite meditative music, just to sort of like, okay, the breathing's not that bad. You'll be all right.
Mm.
um, but yeah, I don't know if there's many other tools that I would use. I mean, the whole phone is like, very hard to separate myself from anyway. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. I think, I guess a further question down the line then is, do you see yourself living with Martha moving forward? In the future, is a care facility in the future horizon for you? How do you think the care will sort of proceed?
Um, in my ideal world, I think I would really love for her to be with me until she goes, until her final moving place forward. So that would be my ideal situation. Um, I have a lot of respect for people who put their parents into care homes, but I just don't see it being for me. Um, but at the moment she's fairly physically able, and I feel like if that changed a lot, um, then I might have to reassess what I do, or my own capabilities around being her caregiver might change as well. She's also fairly physically healthy, and so I've already been doing this for 7 years,
Mm-hmm.
and it's sort of like, well, I don't know if I could do it for another 7.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that as well.
Mm-hmm. No, for sure. Okay. I guess in terms of mood, I would say if you could, on a blanket statement, sort of assess mood on an everyday basis for both yourself and Martha, where would you think that lies?
I think Martha probably has a really good mood most of the time. And I mean, obviously with Alzheimer's,
Mhm.
she forgets what's going on. But I think she has a tendency to forget if something bad has happened or if she's had a fall or, um, yeah, she forgets that stuff. And so she is able to kind of neutralize her mood really quickly and be really happy. And it's actually been really good because I know when she's in a bad mood that something's wrong. Like
Mhm.
she might have a UTI or a cold or a headache or something like that. So that's a good um, signifier for me. And in terms of my own moods, I think um, I've probably been quite depressed for a number of years and then managing. I was a student for quite a long time, and that was really challenging to do both student and working and caring for her. But this year, definitely, I'm kind of only working a little bit and just caring for her. And I've noticed like things are a lot better. I'm in a lot better mood most of the time now, which is great.
Okay.
Great for me.
Okay. No, that's great to hear. I think, yeah, there's definitely, I mean, something that I would say the stats bring up is that there's the mental toll that caregiving takes, the physical toll, the wear and tear, as well as the financial burden. So sometimes it's not even just working to provide for yourself, it's accessory work or other things to provide for this extra person that you are fully managing.
Mhm.
And I think that's very tough. I would say for a lot of caregivers. Do you have any words of advice or maybe wisdom that you would share for somebody maybe coming in with a recent diagnosis, becoming a caregiver, for example, for the first time, and sort of managing this landscape?
Um, I feel like it would be make sure all your legal stuff is done, your wills and EPOAs and a living will, if the person you're caring for has some type of idea of what they would want. And then I think it would be to find an advocate for yourself. Um, like it's really hard to go up against kind of, doctors or like in New Zealand, we have work and income, which do all of our government kind of funding and stuff like that. So it's really hard to navigate those systems when you're also navigating the loss of a parent or you're trying to get your head around just these early stages. And I think just to have somebody to be like, cool, I'll make that phone call for you, or let me fill in this paperwork for you, is the thing that's going to help the most for me anyway, my personal opinion.
Okay, awesome. And I think I would say I just have two more questions. So thank you so much for your time so far. Um, I would say the first one is just more on a broader level. Are there any misconceptions or perhaps things that aren't very clear about caregiving that you would like to specifically make clear?
Oh, there are so many,
Mhm.
but I feel like the biggest one is that it's hard all the time. Like people have a lot of, I would say, pity for me in my situation, and I'm like, it's not that bad, like um, day to day, my actual caregiving, physical doing something for her, might be about 4 hours out of my whole day. And then the rest of that is kind of just chilling out and making sure
Mhm.
she's okay and doing my own thing. And yeah, I mean, I had to do a lot of work on myself to kind of accept that I was a caregiver. But I think once you get over that hump and you're like, yeah, cool, I'm a caregiver now, like that's my role and that's my job and that's my duty, it actually makes life okay.
Mhm.
Yeah. Like we
Okay.
have a really good life, and I think people don't think that.
No, that's really. I think a lot of this is the attitude that you're pushing this forward with, which is really refreshing, and I think shows a lot to your resilience, making the most of this situation and really pushing through for the best possible care for both Martha and yourself. So kudos to you, and I appreciate
Yeah.
you sharing this. I think the last question will be very context related, but in terms of what the caregiving landscape is like in New Zealand and sort of support for individuals living with Alzheimer's or dementia, as well as the caregiving community, what is that like? I'm
Mhm.
currently in Toronto. I also live in New Orleans, so I have a little bit of the North American perspective, but definitely trying to broaden it. And hopefully, our company can provide support to caregivers globally as well.
Yeah, I think in New Zealand, it really differs from region to region. So, as a caregiver, I've lived in a couple different cities around New Zealand, but now I'm in Auckland, which is our biggest city. Um, and I feel like up here in particular, the support groups, like physical ones, don't cater to my specific needs. But when I lived in Christchurch, which was in the South Island, they were able to cater to me more. And I'm not sure what that's about, but
Mhm.
um, I think that's really interesting. But in terms of support, like we have a pretty good financial support system in New Zealand. So I am paid by our government to care for her. And while it's not heaps of money, I could be earning so much more if I was out working 40 hours a week. Um, I'm still really fortunate that we have that and that I don't have to also work 40 hours a week
Mhm.
and care for her as well. And then we have like individualized care plans that we get from our Ministry of Health, which cater to like accessing respite. And Martha goes to a day group 5 days a week. Well, she can go 5 days a week, and we can get carers come into the house, which is all funded or partially funded.
Wow.
So, yeah, that's like a really big relief. And I also think great because, our government can also fund Martha going to stay in a rest home full time. Um, but that's a much higher expense than anything that I receive anyway.
Mhm.
And I'm doing
Mhm.
that work as well. So yeah,
Mhm.
I think, we're pretty
That's
lucky in New
awesome.
Zealand.
Yeah. And I mean, you have a fantastic leader there, which
Yeah,
is
we do. Oh
world
my
class.
God. She's so amazing. And actually, she has supported me personally a couple times,
Wow.
and like reaches out on Instagram every now and then. And um, her office has like advocated for me a couple times for a couple things. So, I'm totally in love with her. She's
Oh,
amazing.
that's fantastic to hear. Oh my
Yeah,
goodness.
yeah.
Okay. Awesome. I think so. Those are all of the questions I wanted to ask you in regards to caregiving. I think I'm going to ask a few questions, if you don't mind, in regards to some of the things that we're looking to develop in our application, and if you have any feedback on that.
Hmm.
And then we can go from there.
Cool.
So, in terms of what we're doing right now, so we definitely, I understand, first of all, that our application, since it's mobile phone based, it's going to have a limited amount of sort of applicability depending on the individual, the care receiver who's using the
Hmm.
application, based on where they are with dementia or Alzheimer's or any other forms of cognitive impairment. So what we're focusing on with this early stage of our application is for caregivers who are living at home and care receivers who are living with them who may still have some tech ability. And then
Hmm.
as we progress as a company and we get more feedback, we develop an offering that's more robust for the individual living with dementia. But so in terms of the high level of what we're doing, so the easiest way to conceptualize it that I like to say is similar to Uber, where there's a rider side and a driver side feeding into the same back end. So we have a caregiver application and a care receiver application. So
Hmm.
for the caregiver, you would have the opportunity to add in reminders for things like going to a doctor's appointment or going for a walk or catching up with a friend or any sort of exercise or anything that you'd like a reminder for, as well as
Hmm.
notifications and reminders about medications, meals, anything that would be part of their daily routine. So you would have the opportunity to set those reminders, and then that would be pushed to the notification system on your Martha's phone, for example, or
Oh my
any care
God.
receiver's
Yeah.
phone.
Cool.
Awesome.
I love that. Yeah. I love that because I feel like definitely in the earlier stages when she was
Mhm,
still living kind of independently,
mhm,
um, that would have been so useful to just be like, have you, instead of hounding her every 10 minutes, like, have you taken your medications? Being able to see that she had would be, oh my God, life-changing.
Oh, thank you. I think, yeah, that's exactly, it's building as much transparency as possible. So if you, so the notifications happen 30 minutes before, 15 minutes before at the time, or if
Mm-hmm.
they missed it, and you would have the opportunity to understand if your mother did complete the task or not. And that would be direct transparency. And I think the other thing that we're doing is mood reporting as well. So
Mm-hmm.
there would be prompts happening throughout the day, trying to understand your mother's mood, whether she's feeling happy, sad, dealing with anything particularly, and then we record that information so you have the ability to sort of see trends.
Mm-hmm.
Just depending on if, for example, maybe you were at work and you didn't have an understanding of what's happening, building transparency. So that's the goal of the caregiver side.
Mm-hmm.
And then for the care receiver, what we're working with right now is a mobile application that completely runs through a chatbot. Our bot is named Iris, and she's a personal memory assistant, is the way we frame it. So she'll send all the notifications to your mother, any individual living with a memory impairment, walk them through their schedule for the day, what they
Mm-hmm.
have in terms of reminders and tasks, and then anytime that your mother would like to interact with Iris, there's the opportunity to message, say hi, and then they can have conversations. Sort of if for example, something made your mother very happy, that Iris would prompt further questions, sort of get as
Mm-hmm.
much information as possible. Really, what we're building on is there is an opportunity as dementia progresses to have repetitive conversations. A lot of the times, and a chatbot is a very easy way to have repetitive conversations without any taxing on an individual.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So all of that information would then be pushed forward to you. And then as we continue to develop an application, we will hope to move that chatbot out of the application towards voice so that whether that's
Mm-hmm.
an Alexa or other speaker systems can be able to connect. That's sort of what we're doing on a high level.
Yeah, I really like that. Especially, like, I really have to face the reality that maybe in 30 years I might have dementia as well. Like, she was 59 when she was diagnosed.
Mhm.
Um, and I think with evolving technology, it's like, well,
Mhm.
what is going to be there for me? Like, hopefully there's a
Mhm.
cure, or hopefully
Mhm.
we found the medication to slow it down. But what if they haven't? How
Mhm.
am I going to how am I going to survive? And I don't have children, and I don't plan on having children. So, like, what will be available to me? And I love it. I love the idea of like a memory Alexa situation. That's great.
Oh, it's amazing to hear. Thank you so much. Now, best case scenario, let's say you had access to all of the tech talents in the entire world. What specifically would be the best case feature for you, or something that in a dream that if you could have, you think would make your life better? Is there anything that comes to mind that you think feature wise, or any product that we could potentially start building?
No, I feel like what you've talked about are the things that I kind of really would appreciate now
Okay.
is like,
Okay.
one, a mood tracker, like,
Hmm.
how are we going? Um, and I think as well in dementia, because depression is quite prevalent,
Hmm.
but it's hard to know if it's depression or if it's Alzheimer's dementia.
Hmm.
So I think that would be a good thing to be able to work out. And then I'm like, the reminders, because I've been doing this for a long time, but I still am like, "Oh, did I give her medication?"
Hmm. Hmm.
Like stuff like
For
that, where
sure.
it's just like really simple, easy to access. Like, I mean, I could set an alarm on my phone, that's fine.
Hmm.
But I think it's like, as a caregiver, you have so much responsibility and you have to have so much thought, and just having something that kind of removes some of that from your day to day, like, it's medication time, or, it's time to do this, would be so useful, just to alleviate some of that mental fatigue and mental stress.
Awesome. Okay. Well, no, thank you so much for that feedback. Really inspiring for me to continue to keep pushing forward. And I want to thank
Awesome.
you for all of the comments and time for interviewing with us and providing
Mhm.
these responses. So thank you so much.
Cool. No worries. Thank you. Yeah, I really
Awesome.
appreciate it. And I'm looking forward to the tech.
Oh, yes. Yes. Okay.